welcome to How to Host a French-Inspired Dinner Party. So you might wonder why we're starting the video in the car. Well, it's because we've got a big day planned where we need to be out on the road picking up different things for the dinner party. So in this video, we're going to talk you through our table setting. We're going to talk about the menu that we've prepared and how we've taken our inspiration for the dinner party, as well as some tips for hosting your own dinner party. Now, a big warm welcome to all our new subscribers. It's great to have you on board. Thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are watching us for the first time, welcome. We're glad to have you here, and we hope you enjoyed this video and some of our other videos on our channel. So as I said, a busy morning ahead. We need to pick up flowers for our table setting. We're taking our inspiration from Provence, so naturally we need lots of flowers. We're going to pick up lots of lavender to go on the table. We're then going to get a leg of lamb, which we're going to roast as part of our main course for our 3-course dinner, and a few other things. So let's get started on the road, and we'll see you again soon. Buying everything that we needed for tonight's dinner party. So we've bought our flowers. I've been to my friend's house to get some lavender, freshly cut from her garden. We've picked up our leg of lamb to roast, and now we're back. Hair a bit frazzled, but that's okay because we're just going to keep going and set up, and then I can get ready before our guests arrive. So as I said, tonight is a French-inspired dinner party. I'm not saying a French dinner party because we're not in France, but we are taking all our inspiration from France and the different regions. And tonight we're focusing on Provence. So what I've done is I've been doing a bit of research. I've had a look at images on the internet of different cafes and outdoor restaurants in Provence. I've also got this book that I love, which is Great Family Wine Estates of France. So I've gone through there, had a look at different castles and estates, and have a look at a bit of their styling to sort of get the flavour of what I want for the table for Provence. So we're going to keep it very simple and classic. I'm calling it rustic elegance, which means I'm trying to evoke the atmosphere of us being in a countryside farm or outdoor setting in Provence. So we're going to have very clean, very simple, very classic setting on the table, and the one we're going to start with is the flowers. So what I've got is some of these Easter daisies. Now, they're not native to Provence. I don't even know if they're used in Provence, but it'll give the image that I want for the table. So having an inspired dinner party is all about just getting the flavour and the atmosphere. It doesn't mean that you need to be exact with every detail, but you can have a bit of fun with it. So what I'm going to do is use these trusty planter boxes, and anyone who has watched any of my videos will recognise these. I use them for just about anything. And I've just got these little, they're actually candle light holders, but I'm going to use them as vases. And I'm going to separate my Easter daisies out into these vases so I have a nice white and green planter box as the table centre. I'll do 2 of those. Then I've also got these gorgeous flowers which I'm going to pop in this crystal vase, which is my nan. So it's always lovely to have something that means something to you in the house. And I'm actually going to pop those in the bathroom and have a lovely French lavender candle burning at the same time. So don't just focus on your table. Remember, there's other parts of the house that your guests will be going into, and it's nice to make those just as special. So I'm going to get started on these. When you're popping your flowers in a vase, it's always important to strip down the greenery, because that's the part that will make the water quite murky, and it's much fresher for the flowers to be kept quite trim and clean on their stems. And then always cut the stems off on an angle like that, which will just mean they can get more water and keep them going for longer. And you can do that every couple of days. Just trim the stems on the angle, which will increase their longevity. So I'll get these ready to put in this vase. Now what I do when I measure up my flowers is I obviously don't want the flowers sitting that high up. I probably want them about there, so I just hold the flowers, hold the vase up to it, and then I know where approximately I want to cut my stems, and it just means you'll have the flowers at the right height. You won't cut them too short. Pop any extra greenery off from there, pop them in, perfect. And I just want it to look quite freshly cut, even though they're from the florist, but just quite casual and informal in the bathroom. So that's the first one done. We'll pop some water in those and then we'll get on to the table centres. Okay, so as I said for the table centres, we're going to use these Easter daisies, which I've just bought at the florist. Now I know these aren't native to Provence, but they have the colour and the foliage that I want to use for the table centre. And I should also apologise for any French-speaking viewers to please excuse my terrible pronunciation, but I'm sure I'm going to murder some of your lovely language, so I do apologise in advance. Okay, so we've got this, and what I want to do is just cut it down so it sort of sits about there. Now this will be a bit of trial and error, so what we'll do is the first one, we'll cut it about there. In. Perfect. So if I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here, I'll do 6 for each one, and hopefully it'll come together as a nice bushy foliage there. Okay, so that's perfect. So I roughly know how many, or I guess how big I want each of the sort of bunches to be, and I will use these as my measure because I know they're the right height, and then I can get them all roughly the right height. Oh, as I spurt them across the kitchen. So, now if you find they start falling over, if you just cut them a bit shorter, it will actually steady them up a bit. So I'm going to put them there. Yep, I think that's going to look great. So I'll keep going with that, and then I'll come back to the next part. I've got a few bunches here, so I'm just going to start with a conservative amount, and then once I've done both planter boxes, I can fill them up with the leftover daisies from them. It just means I know I'm not going to miss out on any. If you have any bunches like this, as you can see, don't have many flowers while others do, just mix them up with another bunch so it's consistent across your table. Now, it's almost a bit of hairdressing with these. As you can see, I've started off a bit shorter and got longer as I've gone on, so it's just going to be a case of cutting the stems down till they're a fairly reasonable and similar. Okay, as you can see, they're coming together very nicely. As I've mentioned, I just want quite a rustic farm, countryside feel to it, and a city chick like me, this is the equivalent of that. So I don't want them really neat, I want them to be quite organic, as much as flowers from a florist can be. So I've done the 2 planter boxes here. I've got some left over, so I'm just going to plug the holes where I need a bit of extra foliage. So I can see a few jars that need that. I'm then just going to fill up a jug of water and fill each of the vases, take them out onto the table. Okay, so I finished off the 2 there, and I'm just sort of tweaking to, I guess, fluff them out and fill the space. One thing you need to make sure is with your table centres is that they're not too high. And I've actually taken this out to the table, sat down, and they're a little bit high. I actually do want to see the person sitting across the table. So I'm just going to trim them all down a little bit, just to bring them down a bit so that it still fills the table, but my guests aren't hiding behind all this foliage. But I'm really happy with those. Okay, so I've got the table centres done. Now I'm going to move on to the place cards. And what I've done is picked some lavender, because when you think of Provence, you think of just bundles and bundles and endless fields of lavender. So I want to add a little element of this into the table. So my friend who's coming tonight, which works out well, has kindly let me pick some of her lavender. So I did that earlier this morning. What I'm going to do is make some little bundles for my guests, tie them together with a bit of string. Also, I'm going to write on these little cardboard luggage tags each person's name, and we're actually going to write the French version of their name. So for instance, James, who's coming tonight, will be Jacques. John, who's coming tonight, will be Jean. I don't have a French version of my name, but my middle name's Fleur, so I think that's French enough. So I'll become Fleur, and so that'll add a nice little fun element to the table. So I'll strip these down so there's just foliage at the top of the lavender, and then that will rest on each person's plate, and it'll really bring the table to life with the fragrance. But it also means it's something that the guests can take home from the party as a little memento. So I'll get started on that. What I'm going to do is actually make 6 piles so I can evenly put them together before I start. Bunch so that they're all the same lengths. I'm going to cut a little bit of string. The benefit of doing this as well is that your house will smell wonderful, and your guests will even notice that when they arrive. So I've got my little string. I'm just going to wind around a few times, tie a little knot, then put my card, through the hole on there, probably position it like that. Another little knot. I've got sticky lavender fingers here. Oh, there we go. And that'll be a lovely little posy that we can put on the plates. And of course we'll write the name on before we do that. But the smell, if only we had smell-o-vision, because the smell is just gorgeous. So I'm going to finish those and then move on to the next part of the table. Okay, so we've got all our lavender bundled up and our name cards ready to write on. So the other elements, I should say, if I can speak properly, the other elements of the table will be, we've got these tea light candles in a lavender fragrance too, and these holders which are nice and high so that if it gets really windy, it should protect our flame there. If we were having candles inside and we were going to be sitting outside but I wanted to light the house, I'd use the little LED battery powered ones, because then you don't need to worry if they knock over. But because we will be sitting at the table the whole time, it'll be fine with these. The other thing when you're buying tea light candles is have a look at what the burning time is. Often the cheap ones only have a couple of hours in them, and there's nothing worse than you're just a few hours or 1 hour into your dinner party and your candles start going out. So try and get the ones with the longest burning time, and also have your spare ones ready to go so that as the candles go out, you can quickly replenish them without having to rummage through cupboards and trying to work out where you put them. So I'm going to line about 12 of those around the table, so as it gets dark they'll really come to life and it'll really give a lovely rustic atmosphere. Then with the plates, I've got these plates that have a little bit of a sort of a vintage feel about them, even though they're new. So I'm going to have a white plate, top it with a grey plate. I'm then going to put our linen napkin on top of that with the cutlery, and then our little sprig of lavender. So I think that's going to look beautiful on the table. So, and then of course we'll have our glasses. We'll have a champagne glass, our wine glass, and our water glass. We'll also have a jug of water nearby to our table, so that we can keep filling people's glasses up with water, and we'll have the wine on standby obviously as well. So I'm going to get all of that ready. I'm going to give the bench a good spray and wipe, because we have been using it for a lot of plant cutting and flowers, so it's a bit yucky. So give a really good clean so that we're ready for our food.